My full name is Barbara Jean Crane, Memphis, Texas,
Awesome.
1929, March the 8th, 1929. My uncles drove me out here. My mother and stepfather was already here, and that left just me and my sister in Tyler, Texas, with my grandmother and grandfather. So she had moved here and got married, and she wanted us to be with her. So when they come from Tyler, well, I'll say LaRue, Texas, but my grandfather had a grocery store in Tyler, Texas.
Gotcha. So they moved here first, and then you all followed to
Me
move
and
here
my
as well?
sister followed later
Awesome.
in 1936.
1936.
And that was about 2 weeks before school started from the summer break. I didn't start the school until January of 37. And then we left here and moved out in the country. And I went to a school there called Fowler Ward. And the teacher taught the whole class. The whole school was no bigger than this room. And she had from kindergarten to the 8th grade.
And that was also in Phoenix before you were at George Washington Carver?
Do what?
That was also in Phoenix?
Yes,
before you came to
it
George
was in
Washington
Phoenix. It was on a farm because my mother cooked for the people, and my stepfather did work for him also. And then we moved to where I was raised again on 1228 South 11th Avenue. That's between Buckeye and Pima. Buckeye Road in Pima, Arizona. Then I went to Dunbar. That's where I graduated in 1945. And I started the high school up here in September of 45. And I graduated in 49. ROTC for 1 year, and after that I didn't get in it anymore. That I enjoyed it because the teachers did more for you then than what they are doing now. And they get paid more now than what they was getting paid then.
Can you give an example of what they would do for you or how they went above and beyond?
If you needed help and they knew you wanted help, they would help you. But you know children, but I was one of the kind, I had to do what I had to do, else my mama would spank me. No, my sister went to Phoenix Union and taken up a trade. And she was one of the first black women that worked at Luke Field. And they were riveting for airplane motors and things.
What did she do there?
A riveter.
Oh, riveter.
And you probably heard of them a long time ago, and the name was Rosa the Riveter. And it was her and about 3 other young black ladies, but it was a lot, it was a lot of them. But those 3 I knew because most of them was my sister's friend. And she did that up until she got to be from 16 to about 20, and then she went to work for Maricopa County Hospital as a nurse attendant. And she did that for over 30 years, and then she retired. I had history, geography, math, English, and well, I had 2 histories, American history, and then just regular history, which I would call it Negro history, because I learned a lot about Negroes. At that time, they call them black now, but it was back then it was Negroes.
Just walk.
I lived on 11th Avenue and Buckeye Road, and I'd walk from there up here every day. Mr. Flipper.
Was he your homeroom teacher
Yes,
as well? Okay, awesome.
And then there was Miss Rogers. Everybody called her Ma Rogers because she had been here for quite a few years before I started. Because my husband was in one of her classes, the English classes. Typing class And that's something I never did learn how to do. I had 2 left fingers.
Gotcha. So with the electives, did you get to choose your electives? So you'd have a list of electives. As far as the elective classes, did you get to choose your electives and how many? So it sounds like typing was maybe an elective. Did they have sewing? Did they have other options?
Yeah, I had sewing class. I liked that, and I had a cooking class. I enjoyed that too.
Okay. Awesome.
I
Gotcha.
didn't never attend a segregated school. When I was going to school, all blacks went to one school, and that was Paul Lawrence Dunbar here in Phoenix, and it's still there.
And then at George Washington Carver, was it the same? Where it was only one demographic? Or?
Yes, Carver, and it didn't change until 1954, and that's when they changed over and started letting you go to any school. But I wish they had kept it. Those teachers cared about you, and they tried to teach you. If you wanted to learn, you would learn. What was it? It was just a regular school, and it was very nice because everybody was friendly, you know. You know, kids are going to be kids, and some kids would fight and some wouldn't, and so it was okay.
Gotcha. But there was maybe a unifying spirit, so everyone felt overall maybe like a team, or everyone was very friendly, it sounds like. So as far as the population of the school, everyone was very friendly, it sounds like. And
Yeah, it seemed to be because the parents was teach the kids how to get along, and the teachers would do also. Now you're gonna have some that's not gonna act right. I don't care where you put them, but it's just like any other place. Oh my goodness, a lot of them, but most of them are all gone. I had a lot of friends in different grades. I didn't, it didn't make me any different who it was. As long as they was nice to me, I was nice to them. Corey Payne, Ruth Franklin's brother. They lived in Chandler, and they could not go to high school in Chandler. So they had to ride the bus from Chandler up here to go to school. And Ruth had a friend named Marie Jones. Well, she was Marie Brooks at the time. And she spent the whole week up here. So she wasn't able to ride the bus because a lot of times the parents didn't have the money for them to ride the bus up here. And the bus was only 5 cents at that time. And Corey graduated from college. He taught the same school he was refused to go to when he was in high school. He was the principal there, and then he became the mayor of Chandler. And he graduated with me in 1949. I knew Fred Warren's aunt, Bertha Solomon. I went to school with her, but she was a couple of grades ahead of me. Her and my husband was in the same grade. And Calvin Good, I knew T.C. Dean, I knew Maurice Ward, I knew Fred Warren. I went to school with a young lady named Muriel Patton, and her brother name was Joe Patton, and she had a sister named Muriel. I went to school with Marion Franklin, and her sister name was Edna Whitmore. Her husband name was James Whitmore, and he had a brother named Glenn Whitmore. And I went to school with Vera Randolph. I knew Joel Turner. It was just a lot of kids that I remember. I can't remember them all right now. Yeah, because most of them, now I could tell you, there was Muriel, there was Jacinda Wanda, Edna, Marion, and let's see, what's that girl's name? We all was raised in Alberta Gray, and she's deceased. And there was quite a few of us that was almost raised up in the same neighborhood, so we would play together a lot during the week after school on Saturdays, and then we went to church on Sundays. There was a church that my mother belonged to, was Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, and it's still there on 9th Avenue in Broadway, in Buckeye. And the next church was, let's see. Mount Calvary Baptist Church was a big church. Then it's a church on the east side, First Institutional Baptist Church. And then there was a Methodist Church, Reverend uh, Reverend Thomas, I think, is the minister over there.
Awesome. And so, yeah, it sounds like you lived very close together and had a lot of interactions. Did you also
Yeah,
have classes with them?
Yeah, because one church would go to the other church, like they have uh, certain things for, and one choir would go sing at that church. And then during that time, they had men quartets, and they would be traveling around in Arizona and go to different churches and sing. And if you could go, you would go.
That's awesome. And those quartets, is that singing or is that instruments as well?
Singing.
Singing. Did
And
you
one minister would do the preaching. They'd have, like a minister from one church would preach. And then they had a congregation for holiness, and they'd have, like in June, and they would go, you know where Eastlake Park is? On 16th Street? Well, right next to it was just a big vacant lot, like maybe an acre. And they would set up this tents, and that's when the convocation would go on with the holiness. And all the kids in the world would try to go. Because I remember we used to go and laugh how they would be jumping and shouting, which they were dancing, but the kids would learn the different steps. And then the Eastlake Park, you would just walk across the street and do the dancing over there, and everybody would know, where did you learn how to do that? You go to the convocation, and those people over there really be dancing, but they would shout. But the kids would take their steps and make it a dance.
That's beautiful. That's awesome.
And you had the streetcars, like they call them, what they call them now, the rail, but there was streetcars. And it went from the Capitol to, I'll say, about 24th Street in Washington, and then they'd come back down Jefferson and go back to the Capitol as far as they was go. I got Vera Randolph and Ernestine Judge and Jewel Turner. There's a Jewel White and a Jewel Brooks, but those are sisters, but they just married different people. Quite a few. But now that I done got older, I don't visit much, and they don't either. So, but I still know they're around. And Tommy Williams was raised on the same street. I was on 11th Avenue between Buckeye and Pima, and Tommy was between Pima and Yuma. So most of them had to pass my house to get to school. Yeah, I worked when I got it to be the second year in high school. I worked at Memorial Hospital in the kitchen. We'd get out of school at 4, from I'd say 4:30 till 9 o'clock at night.
And was that Monday through Friday, every day?
Every day, every day. He was off on Sundays most of the time because they had other people to work, older people work. But you did what you had to do.
Agreed.
And I worked like that until I graduated from high school. Then I worked in a 5 and 10 cent store downtown. One was J.C. Penney's, and one was Newberry's. And I pressed the clothes. When the clothes would come in, then they would hang them up, and I'd do the pressing. And I worked like that until I started working in the Roosevelt School District. And I did housework for different people. Any food they could get. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any examples, maybe?
Well, they would cook different foods, and then It was a young man. He was a cafeteria, over the cafeteria. And sometimes they would have meatloaf, sometimes they'd have fried chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy, and a vegetable. You had to have a vegetable with every meal except when you had hot dogs and chili dogs and stuff like that.
Gotcha. And then what food did your family make? It sounded like you liked to cook or did cook.
A regular meal, just a regular meal. Everybody had the same thing, I guess. Because
give
my
an
mama
example?
did a lot of work cooking, and she cooked for the governor. I can't think of his name right now, but she would do a lot of cooking. My mother was a cook, and I learned how to cook from her.
Awesome. Do you have any? I know you said normal food, but I might not be aware. What kind of dishes?
Okay, you heard of pork chops, you heard of beans, you heard of rice, and you had fried chicken, and you had meatloaf, and sometimes we would have liver and onions and rice.
Sounds
But
delicious.
whatever you had, whatever kind of meat you had to have a vegetable. If it was greens, beans, green beans, string beans, cabbage, same food you eat every day now. Fine, fine. But a lot of the kids that was at Carver didn't like it because some of them had started going to different schools and the teachers wasn't really interested in teaching them anything. So they had to find a school and try to do the best they could. It was
Businesses.
all restaurants. Even the Spanish people had restaurants that black people was not able to go in. Now you could order the food at some of the Mexican places, but if you go in the place and sit down to order food and sit and eat, you couldn't do it. And they still going on right today.
Gotcha. So
But you could work in the place now. I had a brother-in-law that on 32nd Street and I think it's Washington, La Canasta. I mean, not that, it was a Italian place. Now he could work in there, wash the dishes, sweep the floors and things, but he couldn't eat in there.
that's crazy.
It's true. You know, a lot of the hotels, if you was not, what's his name? If you was not famous like Billy Eckstein, Fats Domino, you could go in the place. I don't know about them eating there or what, but I couldn't go in. And I couldn't go in and sit down and eat. But I could work in there. And what they don't understand, what they didn't understand or they didn't care, they know it wasn't anything you was going to do to hurt them, so they didn't care whether you worked there or not. And they treated you very mean.
Were there only
They all
certain-
were the same because there was some places like Clark's and Broadway, well, the Broadway and the Clark's is the same, and Hannah's and Given Brothers. You could go in there and buy their shoes, try the shoes on, but some places you couldn't even try the shoe on. If you wore 8, you say you wore 8, that's what you would get. If it's too wide or too narrow, they didn't want you to bring it back because they didn't want your feet in the shoe.
They were just,
Yeah, but it was in the neighborhood.
okay.
And then when they changed everybody to different places, like Miss White, she have a restaurant over there on the east side on 7th Street in Washington, Jefferson. They swarm in there to eat. But you think about it, when I couldn't come in your place to eat, how do you feel coming in my place to eat? Because you don't know what I might do to you. As long as you're eating and you said it was good, you keep coming back. But once you don't particularly care about me and I'm still the same way, I'm reluctant. I eat in a lot of different places, but I think about how I was once treated and I might still be treated the same way.
Yeah.
But you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't.
It's true. Very difficult.
And it's places right now you black people can only go if you got money. I mean, everybody got money, but what I'm saying, if the more money you have, the more they'll accept you in their places. They were strict. My mother was very strict, very strict.
Gotcha. Do you want to maybe elaborate on what that dynamic was like? Were they very helpful in certain ways? Were they difficult?
Yeah. Just like I said, they had this club for children. My mother was one of the first ones that went and signed up so I could go. But then when they started not wanting the blacks and the whites to mix, she was the first one to tell me, keep your behind at home. You don't go places you're not wanted because things can happen to you. I have to say she was a good mother by herself. She had the 2 girls, and she would teach us right from wrong. But like you said, and like I said, once the child got grown, as they call it, 18, they did what they wanted to do and tried to keep, some of them got caught up in it, and some of them didn't. But you always would have back of your head what your mother and father had taught you to do and not to do. And I was just lucky, because I was too scared to do something, because I didn't like whippings. So I tried to stay and do the best I should have been doing.
Well, can't argue with that. Yeah. So it sounds like very tight family dynamic. Everyone looking out for each other.
My mother was. And there was other women the same way, and kids just drifted off like they do now. But you have more children on the street, living on the street now than you did then, because they too quick to tell you what they not. Now, I know my mother was strict. I understood that, but I'd like to be at home under the covers, have something to eat. But these kids don't understand that. They rather, I'm going to leave home, and they walk away, and they wind up staying on the street, living on the street, and that's not good. Yeah, most all of my teachers and some of my mother's friends, they did better than others, and so, because they was teaching you the same thing your parents was teaching you. And they take more interest. If they felt that you was interested, they teach you what they was brought, how they was brought up, and it was almost the same way as what you was brought up as. You had one dress or 2 dresses. You wear one to school today, and you wear one tomorrow. Then you'd wash them and you'd iron them and put them back on and go to school. I worked all of my life. After I graduated from high school, that's the only way I was going to be able to make it. And then I married my husband in 1952, and he went into service for a couple of years and come out. And then we bought us a home, and just lived a normal life. Yeah, when we used to have meetings, you'd be involved in a lot of what's going on and what you do and what you don't want to do and what you're trying to make the museum better, have more interesting books and pictures and things, and let children know. I don't know where it is now, but they used to have a paper as big as that one right there on the wall, of letting you know. A lot of people don't understand, a lot of black people had more influence back in the day, because a lot of people don't know the garbage cans that you do using today to put your garbage in. A friend of mine went to school with me, and he come up with that idea, but a lot of people don't know that. And the electricity, where it come from, a lot of things that the black people invented, a lot of people think the white people invented it, but they didn't. And a lot of people don't know that. Now we got a lot of paperwork up here, but where it is today, I don't know. and would let you know who John was and who Joe was and what he did and what he invented. But if you could find those papers, they're up here someplace. Brenda might know where they are. And put them up so people, when they come into the museum, they can read it and see who did this and who didn't. And you'd be surprised at the Negroes that invented a lot of stuff that people don't even realize. It means that I got a good education. I didn't go to college, but I learned a lot that I didn't know, and I'm still learning.
Around your
Yeah,
time
the
at
music
Carver.
did, because I love to dance.
Any
That was-
specific, any examples?
Huh?
Any specific examples of music?
Whatever music was playing was fine. Yeah,
Fair enough. What, you said it was the Jitterbug, correct?
you're right.
What were like the top songs for the Jitterbug?
Do you remember the picture that, what's his name? Oh, what's the young man's name? Well, he's older now. I can't even think of the name of the picture. But it was a young man, and I can't even think of the name. But it was a movie, and they was doing a lot of dancing. I call it jitterbug because I still say it's the same thing. It was maybe 2 or 3 steps different, but it's still the same. I enjoyed that.
Gotcha. What about the film? It sounded like from some others there were a lot of westerns, or maybe predominantly.
Oh, I
westerns.
liked all westerns, and I still do. And my friends laugh at me. They say, "What do you do every day?" I said, "Watch all the westerns I can find." Well, they got the rail, which used to be streetcars, but the streetcars didn't go no further than the Capitol to 28th Street and turn around and go back. Now they go from the Capitol to Mesa